everyone, I'm Freddie and I like to read, I like books, I like talking about books, which is why I started this booktube channel. Today I'll be doing the Booktube Newbie tag because I figured it's a really good way to kind of get to know new booktubers and I enjoy watching them myself. So I figured I'd try and answer all of these questions. So let's get right into it. The first question is, why did you start this channel? And like I mentioned, I really like reading. Surprise, surprise. I like books. I especially like talking about books. And while I do have both friends and family who read, they don't necessarily read as much as I do, or they read very different books. And it's not that I can't talk to them about books, but I have a habit of getting very overexcited and enthusiastic and kind of rambling about books that I like. And I want to ramble at people who might get it. People who might ramble back at me. I would love that. So I kind of talk to myself. I live alone and I have a habit of talking to myself or talking to my cat as if I'm doing a booktube video anyways. And I figured, why not just actually do the videos, put them online, and someone might talk back. Mind blown, because no one's talking back in my apartment, and I want it. I want to talk to people about the books that I love. I want to talk to people about the books that I didn't love too. And you know, I've heard great things about like the community on Booktube. I've enjoyed watching Booktube videos for quite a few years now. So I figured, why not? Why not throw myself out there on the internet? On top of that, I'm a PhD student and I have less than a year until my deadline. So I figured best time to start a YouTube channel right now. No, really not, but we'll make it work. So the second question is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? I don't know. Honestly, there are already so many amazing creators on Booktube that I honestly don't know if I can bring something like super unique. Like, sure, my personality is like most people's personality, probably unique, and some people might find that entertaining, and that would be great. I might occasionally also read books that are kind of away from the Booktube normal, but then most of the time, probably not. I read mostly fantasy, so I don't know if I can really say there's something like super unique about what I can bring, but that's up to you to decide, I guess. Third question. What are you most excited for about this new channel? As I mentioned, the whole community aspect of it, having someone talk back at me, that sounds sad, but it's true. But yeah, just finding people who love the same books and read the same books and being able to talk with them, being able to put my thoughts out there. I also kind of reckon that it'll also help me with like putting my thoughts into words, because that's not my forte and that's a good quality to learn, I figure. So why not? Honestly, just like getting to ramble on about books is something I love to do, and I kind of try to limit how much I do, pick specifically when it comes to like my family and friends so they don't get sick of me. But here I figure maybe someone will rant back at me and that would be great. So always feel free to do that. The next question is, why do you love reading? And of course, there's element of entertainment to it. I enjoy reading because I find it fun. That's one thing, but of course not all stories are fun. There's also an element of learning. Like, I find it really entertaining, and I started reading when I was quite young, and I've kind of kept going with a couple of breaks in between. I've just always find it very entertaining. There's also an element of emotional processing, which I also like, because sometimes being neurodivergent means that my emotional processing isn't super great. And sometimes it helps me to kind of process through characters. That also makes me very emotionally a mess sometimes. I cry really easily in books and TV shows and movies, but sometimes it helps actually process my own emotions, which I figure is a good thing. And then of course, like learning, seeing things from different perspectives. You can learn lots from books. Sometimes things are also very wrong in books, but I feel like my answers to this question have been a bit of a mess because I have a hard time putting it into words why I love reading, but I do. Next question is, what book or series got you into reading? And it's kind of hard to answer because it started, well, it's not hard to answer, but it's a longer answer. Like, when I was a kid, my mom used to read to me and my siblings. I remember her reading Treasure Island to us. I don't remember much about the book because I was very young, but I remember that being like a big highlight of my days. And then when I got a bit older, I started reading relatively young. Like, I was reading very, very easy, like simple books before I started school. I was the youngest sibling in the household, and I kind of learned from my older siblings, and I was already kind of reading before I started school. And then in my school, we had like every Friday, we would go down to the school library and pick a book, and then next Friday we would return it. And we had a lot of different books. There was cartoons as well and things, so we got free choice of what books we wanted to borrow. And I don't remember which grade this started in, but it was in the early grades. And I grew up with horses. I grew up riding horses from a very young age as well. We had several different like kids horse related books in the library that I read. The first series that I like collected was the Heartland series, which I read in Danish, and the Danish translations, they came out like once a month, and I would spend my allowance buying the next book. And I still have them actually. They're just behind my chair somewhere. And I still own like the 20 books that was in the series at the time. And that I would say was like a series that really got me into reading. Then of course I was born in the 90s, so I read Harry Potter as a kid as well. And Harry Potter was kind of like my switch into reading in English, because we moved to the US when I was 13, and at that point not all of the Harry Potter books were out yet, and in Danish only Order of the Phoenix was out. So I'd read those in Danish, and then we moved to the US and there was this 6th book that I hadn't read yet. So I got like all 6 Harry Potter books in English, read all those, and I read the Chronicles of Narnia as well, and then I kind of kept going. And that was like the age where I really started to read, because it like kind of unlocked this whole English world of books. And also books in the US, much cheaper. And since then I very much read primarily in English, unless it's a book that was originally written in Danish, then I read it in Danish. But that's kind of my story of how I started reading. Next question is, what question would you ask your favorite booktuber? Booktubers. And I thought about this, and I don't really know, but like one like bookish question is, if you could only recommend one book or series, like the one book that you were going to recommend, what would it be? And feel free to anyone watching this to answer that in the comments, because I would love to know, like, what is your one? If I'm going to recommend you one book or one series, this is the holy grail kind of thing, hit me with it. And then like more booktube related, like how do you organize, how do you keep track of all the things? Do you have a system? Do you have a So the next question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? So one, of course, is like the whole talking to a camera. Sorry if you could hear that, I kind of smacked my mic. But talking into a camera, I'm good at talking into the air and just like talking to myself as if there was a second person. There's not. There's my cat. And she would probably prefer that I stop talking so much. So I just have to get used to like the looking into the camera. I still prefer to regular eye contact, I think. And then being consistent and keeping it going, that might also be a challenge for me, because I do have very much a habit of hyper-focusing, doing a lot, and then kind of losing interest in doing something else. But I'm hoping that, because this is something that I'm so passionate about, and you know, I'm not losing my interest in books, I'm still reading. So that might be a challenge, but we'll see. I have high hopes. I've gotten better over the years. We'll see. And then there's just, you know, there's a lot of things to learn. I haven't edited a video since high school when we did some video projects. So that will be interesting. Planning videos, what to do, like different shots, all those. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos lately on like how to YouTube. So I feel like I'm prepared, but there's still a lot to learn. I live in an apartment with a cat. There's cat hair and everything I consume. The next question is, when did you start reading? And I kind of already went into this. Just to reiterate, kind of started reading at all before I started school. Then I started reading during like the early years. And then I switched to English when I was around 13, when we moved to the US for a couple of years, and kind of kept going. I got really, like, I read a lot in like my teenage years. Then I started university. I kind of dropped off. And then like towards the end of university, I started back up again. I think it actually, part of it was that my friend recommended me some booktube videos, and that kind of like reignited the passion for reading. So I got back into it, and then I just kept going. I also started listening to audiobooks as well, which did make me able to read a lot more, because I have a commute, but it's not really like a mix of long enough that I want to read, but not long enough, and then like mixed transport and walking and things where it doesn't really make sense to read a physical book. But I can listen to an audiobook and get like 25 minutes of reading in on the way to my office and back home. I also sometimes do work where I'm not thinking in words, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. And I can listen to an audiobook at the same time, and that also definitely helped me read more, because I could be a bit more consistent about it. It wasn't only when I had time to sit down and read a physical book. And then this is a kind of a fun question. Where do you read? So as I mentioned, I read on my commute and at work. Sometimes I'll listen to audiobooks. I'm like doing something with my hands where I'm not like thinking words or I'm entering data. I can do that and listen to an audiobook. I can look at a number, put in a number on the keyboard, can still focus on the book. And then here in my reading chair, I have, a thing where I can put my feet up. I'll put a picture if I remember. In my little reading nook, that is possibly my favorite place in my apartment. Like, not that I don't like the rest of my apartment, but I also read on my couch, in my bed, everywhere. I also have Kindle on my phone. I can read everywhere. I listen to audiobooks when I'm cooking often. I'll read anywhere. What kind of books do you like to read? If we're talking genre, then my answer is definitely fantasy. That is by far what I read the most of. I started with fantasy as a kid and I just kind of never stopped. It varies a lot like what kind of fantasy. There are so many subgenres, but I do like me some chunky fantasy series. Yeah. That's good. I'm pretty sure you can see my Realm of the Elderling shelf behind me. Big, nice, chunky fantasy series with lots of emotional damage. I do also occasionally read horror, historical fiction. I like romance now and then. Like a little palate cleanser, like something that's a bit more easy and just like pure entertainment. I'm not as emotionally invested or anything. I do like that. When it comes to like the age range of books, I would say mostly adult books, but I do occasionally read young adult and middle age, but not nearly as much as adult. I almost never read thrillers, which I'm Danish. The Scandinavians, the Nordic people, they love thrillers. It's just not something I gravitate towards. Literary fiction and also poetry, I almost never read. Very, 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 very rare. Nonfiction, I try to read. I mostly read for entertainment. I read for learning in a different way, but I do try to read nonfiction. Well, the last question of this tag is, what does your book collection look like? So I'll insert some shots of my book collection because I've been collecting books since I was a wee child. Some I have from like when I was maybe like 8-9 years old and I still have them. I have over the last couple of years parsed down my collection a lot because I had so many books that I had either read and I was like, yeah, I'm never going to reread this. I just have it on my shelf, or books that I just completely lost interest in ever reading. Some books were books that I felt like I should read, and I've tried to like move away from that, especially because I'm very much a mood reader. So should read does not work for me. So that was me answering all of the Booktube Newbie tag questions. I really hope you enjoyed learning a bit about me and my reading life, my reading history. If you want, feel free to answer. If you have like a favorite question, then leave it down in the comments because I would love to know. But anyways, see you next time. Bye.